broadcast. We're going to be in the 6th chapter of Hebrews on this particular study. In the infancy of ministry, 25 years ago, 2-3 years ago, I said 26, 27 years ago, this book fascinated me, along with the book of Romans. And I saw something here through the years, and eventually the Lord allowed me to teach on it. And that will be the subject of our teaching this particular session. Anyway, so Hebrews chapter 6, let's read verse number 1. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrines of Christ, let us go on to perfection. That's enough right there. Therefore, leaving the principles, that's elementary, rudimentary, fundamental, basic teachings of Christ. So if it's rudimentary, it's fundamental, it's a principle, it's foundational. He says, leaving that. Now, when we think leaving, we think departure. And in essence, that's true. But this particular context and this word is saying building upon rather than departure. Well, what does it mean by that? He means building upon the fundamentals, the base, elementary teachings of Christ. Well, the only way that you build upon something is that you master it. Now, you all went to elementary school when you learned the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. You know, I remember the highlight of my early remembrance concerning timetables. And I finally mastered my timetables. Man, I got to 12, not beyond that, but I got to my 12 timetables. I'd attained something. And right till the day, you can ask me what time, what is what, and it's just there, right? I mastered that. Wish I could say I mastered everything, but I know I did that. Now, what happens when you master something? You're ready for the next step or next stage. So leaving means building upon what you've already mastered and going on to perfection. Well, you know, when you got to high school, you were introduced to algebraic equations, for instance, letters and numbers together. And your success in that particular subject totally predicated upon and correlated with your mastering those fundamentals we just talked about there. And the same thing happens in this setting right here. They're going on to something called perfection, they're being urged to, and the suggestion is that you've already mastered the fundamentals to be able to attain that next level. But let's go back to chapter 5 just for a moment. Chapter 5 and verse number 12. For the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God. Now, these are Hebrew believers. They were under the law. Grace set them free. Judaizers now from the first church, like some of them might come after you, are trying to get them to go back under the law. And they're being exhorted to maintain what they've gained and not revert back to circumcision and Levitical laws as such, that's been fulfilled, but to go on to perfection. But evidently they hadn't mastered these things. If this letter comes forth and says you have need that the principles of the oracles of God be taught you again, you should be teaching them. All right, so back to chapter 6 now. Therefore, leaving the elementary, again, fundamental, base teachings of Christ, doctrine, literally, well, the epistles in particular, but all of the New Testament is basically didactic in nature. By that I mean it's teaching us. Preaching unto salvation, teaching unto maturity. So where are they headed here? He said, let us go on to perfection. Now that word, don't hold me on this. Look it up. T-E-L-E-T-I-O-S, I think it is. T-E-L-E-T-I-O-E-S. Teleotes, something like that. And it literally means to attain the moral goal. You know, oftentimes it says maturity. I just use the word maturity. But you can be mature in immoral things. You can develop and perfect immoral things. So he's saying here, we want to attain that good moral goal, going on to perfection by these fundamental things that we now build upon, having mastered, will give us the ability to do just that. Now we could ask ourselves, they're heading to perfection. How will they get there? How is he directing them to get there? We would like to think that he's going to say something that they should be doing. Exactly the opposite. He says, not laying again. That's very, very important. Therefore, leaving the foundational things, the elementary, rudimentary, basic things and teachings of Christ, let us go into perfection, not laying again. In other words, don't repeat this. If you've mastered it, you need to go back. It will do you no good to go back and stay at that stage to try and get to perfection. I would like to say that I was immediately, jettisoned toward that when I got born again. Let me just recap here. At 12 years old, I walked down the aisle of St. Peter's Methodist Church in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. And I gave my life to Christ. Never forget it. Most important day of my life. I became born again. Didn't know the terminology. Didn't know Romans 10:9. But my heart was given to God, and I was asked that I want to know him. And my answer was to the affirmative, yes. That was Alfred E. Stewart, who was the deacon and assistant. My uncle, George Alexander, who was also officiating that day. And I literally can see that very moment right there at that banister. I love to tell you I went on to perfection, but I didn't. For the next, from 12 to 34 years old, I didn't have a grasp on the fundamentals. And I was trying to go on, as I went to church all the time. Followed everything they told me to do. But I didn't have the basics down. I didn't have the fundamentals down. I couldn't go on to attain my moral goals. Enough said about that. And then I'm warned in this scripture here. I can see myself back then, had someone told me this, don't lay again those foundational things. I would have said, well, what foundational things? I didn't have any. There's a presumption here that they have mastered these things. They are expected to have mastered those, but they need to be taught again, which means they didn't master them, so they can't go on. Not laying again, don't put these same things down, repeat them over and over and over and over, but go on to the next level. Now he lists 6 things we'll get into the next time. But the one we're going to land on is the thing that I looked at 25 years ago, 26, 27 years ago, and it stunned me. Because I knew at that point why I struggled so much as a Christian before. I did not have these things down, yet I tried to go on to perfection. What we're going to land on is the Doctrine of Baptisms. The Doctrine of Baptism. Well, that's our introduction. Please join us for the next time. Until then, stay blessed.